Recording. Perfect. You can get going, Brenda, at any time.
All right, perfect. Okay, I kind of have an outdated chair script, so if I say something.
I'm sorry, yes.
I know, if I say something weird, I'm trying to. Okay, let's see. Let's get this. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. This is Brenda Bartlett, Chair of the Oregon Board of Accountancy. Sorry, it keeps disappearing on me. Chair of the Oregon Board of Accountancy Peer Review Oversight Committee, PROC, and I call this public meeting of our committee to order at 1:03 p.m. on Tuesday, August 19th. This meeting is open to the public and is being held by Zoom, and it is being recorded. The purpose of the PROC is to provide oversight of the administration of approved peer review programs in order to provide reasonable assurance that peer reviews of Oregon licensees are conducted and reported in accordance with the minimum standards for performing and reporting on peer reviews. PROC will review and submit to the board for approval peer review programs that comply with the minimum standards for performing and reporting on peer reviews. PROC will provide oversight of approved peer review programs to the board, and PROC will comply with all other requirements as provided for in OAR 801 Division 050. In the performance of duties as a member of a committee appointed by the board, all committee members will support the mission, goals, and values of the board. Committee members will not disclose confidential information that comes to our attention during the course of carrying out our responsibilities. Requests to any committee member for copies of public information or for a public statement relating to committee or board matters will be referred to the executive director. Liaison board and committee members are expected to attend all meetings and be prepared for the discussion by reading the agenda material prior to the meeting. Committee members are expected to participate in the individual review of applicant files as assigned, providing timely notification to the committee coordinator if a potential conflict of interest exists. Likewise, committee members must provide timely notification to the committee coordinator of any conflict of interest in any matters to be discussed. Members of the committee, please mute your microphones during the meeting to avoid unnecessary background noise, and do not use the chat room feature for any discussions. When you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself and state your name prior to speaking. Should any technical issues arise, we will pause the meeting until they're resolved. We will now take a roll of all participating members and guests. And so any guests, please identify yourself at the end. This is where my script ends and we are going to wing it. I am here, Chair Brenda Bartlett, Committee Member John Howell, Committee Member Michelle Rich. You guys want to say present, I think, for the record, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Pamela Parks.
Present.
And Carrie Ott.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a new board liaison, Megan Hartley. And let's see, we have Darlene Bowles is here.
Present.
Hi, Darlene. And then we have BOA staff. That's Martin. And I'm sorry, Martin, who's with you?
Yeah, so just a moment before we get to the staff here. So Megan, do you mind putting yourself back off mute? Because we do need to get for the record, you say to say present by Zoom.
Yes, present by Zoom.
And Darlene, can you do the same thing, please?
Present by Zoom.
Okay, and then here in the office, so the person you can't see off screen, but who's running the meeting is Erica Guzman. She's present here in the office. And then also with me is our new deputy director. That's kind of part of the introductions. Brenda. Sorry. I almost gave you her name, Brenda. Brenda, I almost gave you her name. Shelley, do you want to introduce yourself really briefly?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you all. This is Shelley Ostrom, the new deputy director. I just started a few days ago, so I'm very green to all of this, but just very brief background. I had a 20-year career in the military, and then I spent 22 years with the Internal Revenue Service. So I've had a pretty big tax background. And now I'm jumping into this other side of the fence. So thank you.
Welcome.
All right, and then there's Martin Piccioni present at the board office. So that's what we have on the staff side here for purposes of roll call.
All right. Okay, so let's see. We did that. So the next is, I think, review and adoption of the agenda. Anybody have any additions or questions about the agenda?
Madam Chair, I do not, but can we give a brief opportunity for Megan also to introduce herself, just very briefly in terms of background, our new board liaison?
Okay, yeah, I think we have that under new business, and I don't know why.
Oh, you have it. Oh, that's right. It's on there twice. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's under 2 and under 6. I'm sorry. Never mind.
I just
Yeah,
have one correct.
I think I was thinking we had to adopt the agenda first and allow for public comment, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
I just, hello, I just have one correction to the agenda here. The RAB meeting on November 21st and December 19th will be at 9 a.m. because we switch back. We'll be on standard time then. So there's only a 2-hour difference between us and Hawaii. So just to
So 9 to noon.
purposes of whoever is going to be observing. And then also, I thought I let you guys know, but the November 21st RAB meeting has been changed to November 14th, just the Friday before. Because we are going to be observed by the, that RAB meeting will be observed by an AICPA member, but we are undergoing our AE review that we do every 3 years by the AICPA. And in order to meet her, we had lots of schedule conflicts with whoever they assigned to us as our reviewer, but we reluctantly moved the meeting to November 14th. We try not to do those RAB meetings prior to a tax deadline, just for the purposes of our volunteers. But I lost that argument with her. So so we're going to be moving that meeting to November 14th. And I apologize. I thought Jennifer sent out a correction, but so it'll be November 14th at 9 a.m., December 19th at 9 a.m.
Okay, I will make that change and we'll note that on the agenda. Thank you, Darlene. Appreciate it. Anything else? Okay. So then I think we need to open it up for public comment. Don't see anybody from
Madam
the
Chair,
public.
we do need a motion to approve it.
Oh, motion. I always forget the motions. I need a motion to approve the change to the agenda and adopt the agenda.
I'll move that we approve and adopt the agenda with the changes that Darlene noted.
I'll second. This is Carrie.
Thank you. All right, now public comment, of which I don't see any public, so we will.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, but we do need to do a
Yes.
roll call vote on the motion.
Oh, oh, Martin, it's just too many times between, I guess it's too many months between, between meetings. Let's vote. Aye.
Okay, so that's Brenda Bartlett. That's John Howell. We need to have the full names on the record because of the new way we have to do this under DOJ guidance. So please, when you vote, state your full name and your vote.
Okay, John Howell, aye.
Brenda
Carrie
Bartlett.
Aye.
Pamela
Parks, aye.
Michelle Rich, aye.
Carrie and I might have overlapped. Is that true?
Carrie, if you voted, you were on mute.
Carrie Aye.
So Martin, do you have a copy? There's new rules?
There are no copies of new rules. It's simply DOJ guidance on, and I thought, and I'm sorry, I missed the last PROC meeting, so I assumed that it would have come up at the last PROC meeting, but essentially we have, just as a brief explanation, we have updated guidance on, since we don't do written minutes and that the recordings of our committee meetings, including but not limited to peer review oversight committee meetings, function as minutes. The guidance that we have is that it needs to be really clear on the record who is making and seconding the motions and how the votes go, which is why we now need to go through the formal, we need to identify on the record who's making the motion, identify with a full name who's seconding the motion, and that we can have a clear association of who's voting, aye or nay or abstaining, associated with an actual clear oral identification of this is the committee member with a full name. So I apologize that hasn't really been fully covered apparently on the proc side. That's a little bit of a newer thing that we've been working through in the last few months. It's been a little bit bumpy. It's quite frankly, some of us have had fun with it because I think the first time the board worked through it, I don't know if you remember, Megan, but it became a little bit of this game of who votes yay versus who votes aye. Because we had to go through the whole oral recording thing. But bottom line is we need to have the full names on every one of these things. But I do believe, Brenda, that because these meetings tend to be less complicated, that you're already through all the, if you will, process hazing. Because unless we have further motions, which doesn't tend to be typical for the proc, it can happen, you shouldn't have to do another roll call.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Martin. I appreciate that. I'll make a note, add it to my script so I remember. All right. Moving on. We were going to discuss old business first. We have old business, the update on the consecutive non-pass firm. But I think it would be great if we could just discuss all the firms together. And does this take a motion to change our agenda at all? I didn't think about it till I started reading it. I just want to introduce the new proc members before we move on to the other business. Martin? Oh.
Yeah, well, that works.
That works. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to welcome Megan Hartley, who is our new board liaison, and thank you so much for agreeing. We always have questions for the board liaison. We rely on you a lot, so welcome. And if you don't mind taking a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yes. So, hi everyone, and I'm happy to be here. So I am a audit partner at Deloitte. I've been at Deloitte for 20 years. I've been a partner for about 8. And my board service started with the Laws and Rules Committee, and that was sort of a slog. We were rewriting quite a few laws and rules, and so I learned a ton through that process, and then just in the last year joined the board, and gosh, it just really feels like we've done a lot in just the last year. So happy to continue my service by being the liaison for the proc here. And so, yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And we also have a new member, Michelle Rich. And again, very, very excited to have you come on board, Michelle. If you don't mind taking just a few minutes to introduce yourself, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle Rich. I'm with the Oregon Institute of Technology. I'm the Director of Audit and Compliance here at the university. I also adjunct, teach from time to time some of our upper division accounting courses. So really excited to serve and appreciate the opportunity, and also to give back to the profession. It's another experience I'll be able to share with our students. Been with Oregon Tech for a little over 11 years. And prior to that, I was in accounting or in public accounting in Bend with a firm for about 10 years. So I've lived in Oregon most of my life, and just again, looking forward to being a member of the committee.
Exciting. We're excited to have you. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna move on to new business number B. We had a couple, RAB meetings in the course between our last meeting and now. And the first, I believe, was on June 20th. And I believe Pamela, were you able to attend?
Yes, I was.
Awesome.
As we've kind of observed in the past, the RAB just did a really good job. Really good discussions. It was back in June. I used the board, I don't know what it's called, but the RAB Oversight Committee like template. It's a checklist that I got from the national website. And I just kind of filled it out as I listened to the RAB meeting. So I don't know if other members have had a chance to like use it, but it was kind of helpful. I think that the benchmark report in the RAB meeting, they got a benchmark report and it was all good news. And the RAB members are going to a conference in San Diego, and I was very pleased to hear that a lot of the members were going. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of experience on that. And so I just noted that I worry that when those practitioners retire, you know, who's going to fill that gap? Because those people really have some valuable experience. But yeah, all good.
Pamela. John, I think you attended August 8th.
Yeah, and actually, Jennifer Kelson had emailed me the August 8th got canceled because they didn't have enough reviews to do. And so she asked me if I would volunteer for the September 19th meeting, and I told her that I would in exchange for that. So when we get to that next section, we'll already check off the first one. Pamela, I think the checklist that you mentioned is a really good idea. Would you send that to Martin and have him send that out to us, have the staff send that out to us? That would be really great. I'd like to look that over. I think we should all consider using something like that and just make sure we're doing what we should be doing for oversight. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I do too, because I take copious notes as I'm going through, but I'm like, am I capturing everything that I should be? So I love that.
That's
Thank
perfect.
you.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be happy to distribute.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, so moving along to item C, we've got John signed up for September 19th. We've got 4 more meetings between now and our next meeting, which I think is in January. No, November. Is that right? It's November, right? Okay, so we have 4 remaining for the end of the year. So we will have one more opportunity in November to assign the December 19th, but if we have any takers for October 24th, November 14th now, or December 19th, I'm happy to take one, but I want to like just be flexible if anybody has one that they're more free than another time of year. I don't do taxes, so I could actually do November 14th. Yay. I'm always celebrate that fact that I don't do taxes, but. Oh, John, you're on mute.
I think it's only extended nonprofit returns in certain fiscals that are due on November 14th.
It is, yeah.
15th. So I think it's a big deal. I
It's
mean,
not a terrible one, yeah.
no.
I just like to plug that I don't do tax. I just mention it.
That's
Any takers for October 24th?
I'll volunteer for
Carrie,
it.
I can-
Okay. Is that okay, Michelle?
Oh, Carrie's more than welcome.
No, you go ahead. I was just gonna offer to take the December one because I can't do the October.
Okay.
So Carrie, you don't mind taking December?
Yep, I could do December.
That's awesome. And then Michelle, you're good with taking October?
Yes.
Okay. And I can take November. I can take November 14th. I haven't done one in a while and I'm available. So Martin, this is gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I think what I'm missing is any AICPA, is it PRB meetings that might be coming between now and then?
I am happy to do a little bit of Googling around this stuff right now. If you give me a few minutes and just keep on moving, I will do a little bit of Googling, okay?
We will, thank you, I appreciate that. I think I meant to do Googling before oh, do you know, John?
No, I don't know.
Okay,
I had one comment because I know that Darlene said that they were having their AICPA oversight done at the November 14th meeting.
Mhm.
And I think that just, and who took that one? That was
Me.
you?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the only other thing is I just think as part of our oversight, we ought to see the AICPA oversight and then if possible, maybe have a conversation with the AICPA oversight person. But that was my only comment is we ought to try and coordinate those two things.
Yep. Darlene, correct me if I'm wrong, they do issue a report. Is that correct?
Yeah, it takes a while to come out, but they issue
Yeah.
it.
And I think that's part of our annual report to the board. If the report has been issued, we will include that. Do you know the timing of that potentially?
I think the last time it took maybe up to 6 months to come out.
Okay. That might not hit for this one, but we can talk it, like to John's point, we'll be watching that, monitoring, and yeah. Okay. All right. So now we can move on to our discussion of the consecutive non-pass firms. And I'm going to start with the one that was an old business. The only reason this one's an old business is because it's one that came on our radar, oh, I'd say about 18 months ago. And we just sort of been tracking it under old business. They were given, quite a few extensions to finish up their corrective actions. And so now this is just sort of like, we said we weren't going to do anything. We kind of tabled any discussion until we saw the results of what they had completed. So I need to find my notes. I went through all the documentation, as I hope everybody did, and just kind of took a look at it. This is firm number 43. Don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. With this process, what we've traditionally, what we're traditionally looking at is monitoring that RAB, the RAB actions, the corrective actions. We do, as a committee, have the oversight and option to refer a firm to the Board of Accountancy if we believe it's merited based on what we're seeing. This was one that was on our radar for that specifically, simply because it was a pass with deficiency and then a fail. So I think for those of you who weren't on the committee at the time, some of you were, the big concern was that lack of progress from a pass with deficiency to an outright fail. Also the fact that they're doing governmental audits, a little, pretty high, the public trust type of thing there. And I think some single audits. So that's just sort of the background. Just opening it up now for any kind of discussion or any thoughts that you might have based on what you've read.
I had a few questions.
Okay.
I noticed that the firm was provided several extensions, both with the 2021 and again 23. And I just my own awareness, especially with the extensions after their 2023 fail, is that typical, or is it just a case by case with extenuating circumstances?
Do you know that?
It's usually just it's usually a case by case basis. I mean, I believe this firm had a lot of corrective actions, so it takes a while to get all of them completed.
Yeah, I don't mean to come across this question at all, just with the nature of the audits that they're performing and just the number of extensions and going from the past with the deficiencies to fail. It just, piqued my interest, making sure I had a solid understanding of the overall process.
Do we know who does those? Do those come before the RAB of extensions, or who's granting extensions?
If it's within 6 months, if it's within 3 months, my staff can approve them. If it's within 6 months, CPA on staff, which is me, can approve them. Anything beyond that is a RAB decision.
Those come before the RAB then. I think I'm not sure I ever remember those coming up, so I was curious too, so. Okay, any other questions or any concerns about the ultimate decision of the RAB? They accepted the peer review. Darlene, this is not one that was referred to AICPA. Is that a true statement? By the RAB?
I don't have the names.
Oh, that's right. I
that
forgot.
line up with the numbers. I asked Andrew for it yesterday, but I didn't realize he was out. But I do not believe this is one that the RAB did refer. So, and the reason they wouldn't have referred is because when the last corrective action came in, which is either a peer post issuance review or both, it was to the RAB satisfaction, so it showed improvement, and they opted not to refer.
Yeah, and my notes do show it was a pre-issuance review, which in my mind is a little bit more powerful because, it happened before it went out, so we know what went out was quality. So, yeah. Any thoughts on this one? We've been tracking it for a while.
John Howell, I think that my biggest concern here in looking at this is that there were multiple extensions requested after both peer reviews. I'm looking through this 33-page document. There are multiple extensions requested for the corrective action, and the corrective action that they were requesting the extension on was hiring an outside party acceptable to the committee to perform the pre-issuance review. So in the interim, the concern here is in the interim, then the firm is issuing statements and completing audits that aren't having any pre-issuance review done at all. And this was specifically to the single audit engagement. So Yellow Book, 8133, it was specific to that they were doing. And so really the concern here is, well, they keep kicking the can down the road on the pre-issuance review, and then they finally have one, and it's good. I think that I related at the last meeting that, I've now survived 30 years of peer review, and I'm kind of familiar with the process. And, there is an element, I will admit, at the small firm of getting your collective act together for peer review and making sure that everything is cleaned up and copacetic. And, we come in and have the peer review and we hope everything is fine. But we've probably taken a little additional care when we know that the third party is going to look at it. Here again, this can got kicked down the road many, many times with this fail. Now it's been corrected. I guess I would like the committee to do, I guess, more than anything, is to maintain a collective awareness of this particular case. And when its next peer review comes up and it's a PWD or a fail, and we have the same issue, that we see if the same process occurs. I'm trying to be neutral in what I say. But the same process occurs, because I think I have a little bit of a concern about this process. I mean, we want to keep them alive and breathing. I think I know we sign a confidentiality agreement when we go to the RAB meetings, but I believe I saw this one. I mean, I think that every firm is important that does audit work, every firm is important that does, especially the muni audit works for the small munis, because in some of these rural areas, we're starting to have less and less audit coverage for them that's affordable, for that. So it is important to keep these firms alive and breathing, especially when they're in that space. But by the same token, what's the term? It's cynical compliance. Is that the term? Of doing the same thing over and over and resolving it the same way with one pre-issuance review of one A133 single audit, and then back to it. So that's my comment on this one. I think because this one's been in the cycle now for 6 years, my concern is where are we when we're in the 9th year of the cycle with this firm, and will the changes really be made? Because it's evident that peer review reports, the same things keep happening, and from the extension requests, the same things keep happening. And I'll shut up.
And this is Brenda. I'm not sure if I have to say that, but I do have a question on that, Darlene, if you know. I think on one of these, perhaps I noticed that the pre-issuance review had to be on their next audit. But I don't know if that's true, or if I made it up in my head, or if they get to choose, because John brings up a good point.
It's the pre-issuance review of the next
The
audit
next
of
single
whatever it
audit.
is.
And
Yeah,
how do
the
we
firm
know
doesn't
that?
get to choose. It's
Okay, how do we know
one.
that though?
Sorry?
What do they do? How does the RAB know it's their next one? So they have, I mean, they know what it is, but how do they know that?
I mean, the RAB wouldn't know. I mean, there is a level of trust and honesty here that we expect from firms that are enrolled in the program. I can tell you if this firm comes in on their peer review, which is due September 30th of 2026, if it's another pass with deficiency or fail, it will be an automatic referral to the AICPA.
That part I remember, that's automatic referral. So, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if it was the next one, so it sort of prevents them from issuing one until they've issued a good one, but,
No, it's always the next one. And the only time it wouldn't be is if they've assigned CPE, they would want the firm to take the CPE and then do the next one so that you can judge if they have applied what they've learned properly. So they do let them take the CPE first.
mhm.
So sometimes it's worded that way as well.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns or that we want to talk about? As John mentioned, keeping this on our radar, it will come to us, but it will also be automatically referred. So at this point, they have to pass, or they will be referred to AICPA in around September 2026 when they've turned that in.
Yeah, I think though, Brenda, the question for us is that the referral to AICPA ultimately affects their AICPA membership and the AICPA membership of the CPAs within the firm, and especially the owners or shareholders, but it doesn't have anything to do with their ability to continue to practice in Oregon. And it's really the purview of the Board of Accountancy as to whether something like, and that's kind of, I think this is later in the discussion and we can table it for that, but whether this should be some sort of referral from the PROC to the Board of Accountancy to do something further on on the regulatory side, because AICPA is sort of a quasi-regulatory authority, but by the same token, AICPA's ultimate authority, as I understand it, is to suspend or revoke membership of members and to make a referral then to the firm or the practitioner's state board of accountancy, which is our governing body that we report to. So that's kind of my issue here. You get to a point where should you be doing audits anymore if you can't ever pass peer review?
Well, and it was my understanding, and obviously Darlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the AICPA would not allow them in the peer review program. Is that true? Or is there a decision that they make at that point? Oh, you're on mute.
Depending on the results of the, whatever the AICPA decides as they go through the hearing process, if they are discontinued from the AICPA program, I believe that is something that's automatically reported to all of the state boards. If nothing else, it would come up in the FSBA part of PRIMA. So it would alert someone at the state level that this firm is no longer in the peer review program.
So to your point, John, I think that as as you said, as we're monitoring this, it's not an automatic necessarily that this would be reported to the state board, but it may be the opinion of this committee at that time that they should be turned over to the state board for further investigation on the licensing end, as opposed to just, because the AICPA is going to go their track, and we then have the, the purview, the charge, I guess, I don't know what it is, the responsibility to decide whether we think they should be referred to the board investigation people. And I don't know how that works because we've never done it, but we would find out then. So that, because my concern is the same as your concern. If the AICPA decides to let this go, or it somehow doesn't get referred to the board, but we feel like it should be, we certainly can make that referral, is my understanding.
Makes sense
To
to
the
me.
board, not the ICPA. All right, any other questions for, any thoughts on the matter could be closed until the next report? Is that what we're thinking? Okay. All right, that's number 43.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
since we're kind of at a semi-breaking point, and I mean that in the positive sense of the word, I did just send you what I was able to find on AICPA in terms of the peer review board meetings. On your emails, there's actually 2 of them coming up. They didn't publish a specific start time, but they've been traditionally at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for the public portion of those meetings. So I sent you 2 meeting dates on your email whenever you want to get to that.
Okay, well, since we're talking about it, let's just, we're at a break, let's talk about it. It appears to be September 10th and
Yes.
November 13th. So I have attended one of the AICPA ones. They're kind of fascinating. I would just give everybody an opportunity if you would like to. I'm happy to attend one as well. I'm trying to think if I'm out of town on the 10th. I know I'm around on the 13th, but any thoughts on attending those?
That's September 13th.
Yeah, September 10th, November 13th.
Oh, so, okay. So I haven't ever done one, so I would be interested in November 13th. I'm going to be out of town on September 10th.
All right, I'll put you down on the calendar for that, September 10th.
No, I think John, didn't you just say that you were out of town?
Oh, you said
on the
November
10th?
13th, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's
Okay, thanks, Martin. Okay. All right, anybody want to look at September 10th?
Yeah.
Look at the calendar.
I will always schedule those on my calendar as well, because it's truly public. You don't have to be, a CPA to attend those. I just have a hesitancy to commit to the committee that I can do the 10th. Because
I just looked, I can do the 10th. It's the week before that I'm not around.
Okay.
So I can take that 9-10 one.
I will definitely
Wide
have
open.
both of them on my calendar too, because I'm interested in these things as well, especially now with not trying to get too far ahead on other agenda items, that it sounds like that entity is also starting to talk a little bit about impact on from the private equity ownerships on peer review. I'm hearing that there's some discussions on those starting at that board level there as well. I just can't commit to the 10th because I'm a little bit in an uncertain space because I have a surgery coming up in terms of how quickly I'm allowed back to work.
I'm happy to attend that. Now, if I recall, there was something we had to do to get registered. Is there a website we need to get onto? Do you recall?
Yes, it's basically it's behind, and I know AICPA doesn't like it when I call it a paywall because you can't register for free, but you have to essentially go in, establish at least a login, and then you can get to, at some point they shoot out stuff and say you can register now. I don't think it's open yet because I haven't been able to find it yet that there is a way to register, but you actually have to find essentially the registration link. I have not been able to find it yet for the 10th. I suspect it will probably come out in the next week or so.
Okay. I think somebody sent it to me the last time I attended. I don't remember it being easy, but once I had the link, it was easy. So.
It's not, and I'm happy to share if I find it before, if it comes out before I'm out of the office starting the 27th, but it should come out before then.
I get them too, and if I see it come out, this is Darlene for the record. I get them too, and if I see them, I'll shoot it to you, Martin, and you can pass it along to whoever.
Yeah, and then actually, do you mind copying my amazing new deputy, Shelley? Because
Okay.
if it happens after I'm out of the office, she may be far more responsive than I am. And you may like her a lot better than me, which is probably a low bar.
Yeah. I'm also out for first 3 weeks of September as well for surgery. So if it doesn't come in before then, I will be forwarding it. But if I see it come in before then, I would be happy to share it. Can you send me her email so I have that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You should actually already be on an email with her, but I'll do that right now.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, moving on to firm 40. This one was a fail, then a pass with deficiency. I think I'm just, for my part of the notes I took, the fail, there was a lot of stuff going on. And then the pass with deficiency, it was pretty limited. Not, just it's a big deal because it's inadequate review, which is not, as we all know, not good, but a lot less things going on. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything struck you on this one that perhaps we need to follow up further or get more information? Not too many extensions on this one either. The other thing I noticed is that in their original one, they stopped doing ERISA. They had a lot of deficiencies in ERISA, which is always, for me, a big key thing. Some of these really highly regulated areas, if you're not going to be, participating heavily in the space, it's probably best that they not be in the space. So I thought that was a good decision on the part of the firm after that. So any thoughts? Anything we should discuss? Okay. At least they're making progress. I liked to see that. And then we are on 44. I think, right? Yeah. And they were passed with deficiencies for both years. It did strike me as the second year, the 12/31/24, but one of the bigger deals was their risk assessment didn't comply with SAS 145. I think that sometimes happens. I mean, it was out there, but I could see that they assigned some CPE and a pre-issuance review. It looks like it's been extended, so we don't know the result of that yet. I don't know if you can see, if you can see it on your end, Darlene, who this is, but that was the best I could tell is they're extended to 12/31/25 for their CPE and their pre-issuance review. So
I was just looking at the materials here.
so I think the real question for us is, do we want to keep this on our radar? To make sure we see what comes of the 12/31 review. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. With that one we talked about earlier, where it was a pass and then a fail and a lot going on, we really wanted to track it. Proc doesn't always track these. If there's a little bit less going on and the corrective actions seem appropriate, we don't always monitor them, but I'm happy to put them on the monitoring list if anybody feels like this situation merits that, as based on what your reading of the materials.
Answer your question, they are on extension till December 31st, 25.
Yeah, I believe that last letter is simply mislabeled completion letter. It's actually another extension. The last one in the packet. So yeah, so they're on extension.
Yep, they're on extension. So would the proc like us to continue to monitor this, or are we satisfied with, you know, the RAB's actions and just, you know, feel like we wait until the next one, which will be later?
I think we'd want to see the completion letter on this one at least. I mean, I think that just to close our book on it, so to speak, is just, you know, await the completion letter, and maybe our January meeting it'll be available. Is there extensions to December 31?
Yeah, in January. So I'll put it on our tracker and make sure to get it on the January agenda, just to make sure we're tracking it. And now Andrew's giving us numbers, so this will be a lot easier. It was really hard before to track these, so I feel pretty confident about tracking these now. All right, so that's the three firms. I did have one question. Darlene, I thought that there was a time when you said perhaps the RAB had referred a non-consecutive non-pass to the AICPA for just never responding, but I thought it was one of these three firms, but this didn't look like that. So is there one that?
There was one, I thought there was one of these firms, and I don't know if it's number 44 here, because again, I don't know the names that go with these firms. But the RAB at the last meeting did refer a firm because they were a three-peat. So that's an automatic referral.
Okay. So
Something's ringing in the back of my mind that that firm does have something on extension to 12/31. So I think it's this firm.
And so what we're not seeing is the first pass with deficiency, maybe?
Sorry, we were both talking at the same time.
Sorry, you said it's a three-peat, so maybe their 2018 was also a pass with deficiency. We just don't see that here.
I believe so, yeah. They came over from if this is the right firm, they came over from California.
Okay.
So they had non-pass down there, and then 2 with us at Oregon. So that's an automatic referral.
So if this is the one, I think what I'll do is track this, and maybe we'll revisit in November. And when you and Andrew and I just want to confirm that, because with it being the 3rd, then it's a little bit different for us as well. It's not just 2. And so if it got referred to AICPA, then I think that we would want to know that, but maybe we just need to confirm that. And I'll put it on the agenda for next, for our November meeting.
Okay, so we're on firm number 44.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will make a note for that, since neither Andrew or Marilyn are here. I want to make sure that they're clued in. Okay.
Because I do remember you saying that, and I couldn't tell, but it's because we only get, right now, we only have two. So also probably we'll just need to check in with Andrew, and if there's three, we would want three, right? We would, so we'll just. So we'll confirm that, and if this, to the committee, if this happens to be the one that Darlene's thinking about, we'll make sure we discuss it in November, not wait till January. And
I
get
just
the
looked them
data.
up in Prima, and they do have a corrective action due December 31st of 25. And this firm was referred to the AICPA. So
Okay, so this is the one that was referred to the ACPA.
I'm
Okay.
99% sure, but 1% still has a question.
Okay,
And this would be the one that we refer to as firm 43 then?
44.
44, okay.
So what we're missing in our in our material is that first pass with deficiency or fail. I don't know what it is. So what I'll do is follow up Darlene and Andrew, just confirm that this is the one that was referred. And in the meantime, I'll ask Andrew if he can get us the materials for the first one. And then we'll just have another discussion about this one in November. Find out if, figure out if we want her for the board as well. All right, any other questions or discussion of the firms that we've reviewed today? All right, moving right along to E, this is the discussion of the new NASBA recommendations about, I think what we were going to try to discuss is talking about how the guidelines differ from the current policies and practices. And so were you able to read through? I think Andrew did send that. Was anybody able to read through that and have any, like observations on it? My observation was the NAS recommendations look a little more stringent than our practices as of now. And Martin, I'm not sure what our responsibility, if any, is to this topic.
Okay. I think that quite frankly, all of this is, and this is my personal perspective and my best understanding of the NASBA side of the equation, right? To me, this is simply meant to be a helpful recommendation on the NASBA side. I think the NASBA side is, I want to say, almost painfully aware that what individual boards do at the state level with respect to peer review oversight, what we do at this committee, is quite frankly a bit all over the place and not as consistent as one might seem across the 55 jurisdictions. I think my take is that the bar here is, and this is not meant to be critical by any stretch, is set a little bit high, which is reflected in your comment on this looks a little bit more stringent than what we do. It kind of makes sense from their, what I would say, more aspirational perspective, that that's what they're trying to do. There is no direct power or expectation that comes via NASBA, right? NASBA is not the regulator. They can they can essentially make a recommendation, but that's it. Essentially, the power of the PROC doesn't flow via NASBA. It comes from the statute that the Oregon legislature passed with respect to what our duties are. So really, the extent of our obligation here to try to directly answer your question is, our duty is to consider this, but what we do with it is entirely up to us. This is not a direction. It's simply a resource, and it's up to us to determine. So we're already on the best practices side by simply bringing it up. We're making sure the committee's aware, and it's up to us what we do with it and when we do something with it, right? And we've taken the first step, but there is no, expectation that, oh, this means that we now have to align with it. It doesn't reach that level, right? This is the first step of making sure you're aware, and it may or may not lead, whether it's today or the future committee meeting, to a discussion of, do we want to change course on something we're doing today based on that recommendation?
And is this something that is on, I would say, is this on the various Board of Accountancies like agendas or, radars, or even the AICPA to look to this? I guess I don't, it was interesting information to me, aligns a little bit with how I feel about peer review, but that's personal, not, that's, so I'm just curious, would it be worthwhile for us to continually revisit and see where the board is or the AICPA is on this, or if any changes are going to be made at all to take some of this into consideration in other policies?
Well, it's interesting you asked the question that way, because it kind of seems to, number one, get a little bit into what I will call the Megan hat of, should we knock on the board, ask Megan to knock on the board's door and say, hey, this stuff came out from NASBA. Is the board's expectation that we align with this, because it may not fully align with what we're doing today, right? And just kind of do a little bit of, if you will, the dipping of the toes in the water of, how does the board feel about this document, right? So that's at least one thing that I'm hearing here. It also has a little bit of a potential, depending on where that ends up, has a potential connect to another portion of your agenda today, which is around, hey, if you want to do something differently, is there anything that actually would touch something at the level of rule? I don't know that it would or not. I don't have that in front of me, right? But if it is, then we already have separately on the agenda this whole notion of, how do we work through PROC and the Laws and Rules Committee process for updating our PROC rules.
Yeah, I think that there's, to my way of thinking, there's fundamentally two questions here. We know what the PROC's responsibility is, monitoring peer review programs. Okay. As part of the monitoring of peer review programs, we've taken up the tracking of consecutive non-pass peer review ratings. This is talking about board responsibilities, however, which are not PROC responsibilities. And then that goes to Martin's point, which is very well taken, is what would the board, if anything, like us to do with this? I think it probably effective for us to say, what is it that we're doing now, and where does that go? So what we're doing now is we're having board staff bring us consecutive non-pass reports and background documentation and corrective actions. And then we're talking about those, and we're in some cases voting to continue to monitor. In the 7-ish years that I've been on the PROC, and I believe that Brenda and Pamela have been here with me that entire time, I think that this one that's come up here, this firm 40, that's being referred to the AICPA, may be the first one in our time on the PROC that's actually been referred to the AICPA. I can't recall any previous cases. So what would be kind of interesting background for us to know is, when is the last time that the board has made a referral to the enforcement arm? And I believe the enforcement arm of our board is the disciplinary committee, which has the investigators. When is the last time that something came through peer review, through RAB, to AICPA referral back to the board, that the board made a referral to the enforcement arm? Because I don't think any of this has happened on our watch, but I'm guessing that it's probably happened in history, and it would be a little bit interesting to know from the PROC standpoint, the background of that. But again, we always go back to Martin's comment, which is, our duty is oversight. under the statute's clear. What we're doing is we're to conduct oversight and determine that if, in our opinion, the peer review if peer review entities are functioning effectively, which there's only one, and then at what point do we touch any of these other things? So that is a question, I think, really for the board. And if Martin or our liaison would take that back to the board and request direction from them on that, then we can certainly do that. One of the things that was sort of making me laugh here, because this is typical NASBA stuff, is, what do they say with the subsequent pass with deficiencies? Consider sending a letter to the firm with the reminder of the significance of receiving 2 consecutive pass with deficiencies peer review reports, which could be considered failure to comply with peer review requirements. It's like, what does that mean? I don't think that means anything. It's like, ooh, it could be considered this, but maybe you should be scared. But we're the board, and we haven't said that it. I mean, I think the board has an affirmative duty not to make threats, but just to say we consider this under our regulations and standards to be failure to comply with the peer review requirements. We don't think that it could be, right? There's no could. It either is or it isn't, I think, from the standpoint of the board. So I was sort of chuckling at that. But again, I think this comes down to when the board refers to the enforcement arm based on peer review. And just from my own understanding as a member of the PROC, that's kind of like what I would like to know is, when's the last time that happened? If that's probably public record, if we could maybe, those of us that have an interest could look at the case in a PROC meeting, have it with our PROC materials, and then again, as Martin suggested, ask the board what it is they would like us to do. Do they want us to make a recommendation since we're doing this process, or do they prefer to wait for the AICPA referral? As Darlene's mentioned, that one's out for AICPA referral. Do they prefer to act on that and then just let us know? I mean, I think we just like to know that happened. Probably Darlene will tell us, or Martin will tell us that no, that went to the board and the board decided to do X with it. So, or our liaison will say that. So I think that's really the main things I see here. But it seems to me these are duties of the board.
Yeah.
It says if there are any repeat deficiencies, the PROC should refer the firm to the enforcement arm of the board. It's like, I don't think we have that authority under the Oregon statute. I think these recommendations may not, I don't think we have that authority. I could be wrong, but I don't think we do.
I think I'd have to reread it and have an attorney help us, but I think you're right. I think we only report to the board. We don't have any real, like authority. We report to the board.
Yeah, we can't refer directly to the disciplinary committee. We don't.
I don't think so. I think we would make a recommendation if we had that type of concern. We would make a recommendation to the board. I don't know what that looks like because we haven't done it before. But then it's the board's purview to move on from there. I don't know if you have anything to add, Megan, about what you've seen on your side, but that is kind of my understanding is we solely report to the board anything that we would want to bring to their attention.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have enough experience in my time at the board to say exactly what is under our purview and yours, but I'm happy to take this back to the board. Martin, I don't know if you have any other thoughts about Brenda's question about authority.
I'm going to be really careful on this one for 2 reasons. I'll give you the funnier one first. My hair is almost as gray as John's. And so my memory is a little bit less reliable. I do think there is one case that I faintly remember from a little bit more than a decade ago, where there was some serious, at minimum, discussion. I can't remember if it actually resulted, where something got at least very close to the line of, hey, this should rise to the level of some kind of an action on the compliance side of the house. But I don't remember the details because it was so long ago. So there is kind of that, there is that piece out there. And quite frankly, the other piece, the other reason, the more serious reason why I'm more, so we're going to have to staff look into that for sure. The more serious reason, other than joking about, the level of grayness on my and John's hair, is the issue of authority. And I do think that I would prefer to circle back with board counsel first around the specific authority question rather than wildly guess in a public meeting as to exactly where that boundary is.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I mean, it's important for us to, and I've read, the ORS that established the PROC. I think we all should, but I never saw anything in there about authority to refer anything to the disciplinary committee. I mean, we report to the board. That's it. It's a vertical reporting only. I think that is true. Martin, most of the cases I've read, and I do read a lot of the disciplinary stuff because I find it interesting. I've read a lot of the cases and minutes of our disciplinary committee. Almost all of the ANA issues come through consumer or other regulator complaints. They
Yep.
don't come through peer review. So they're dealing with things where the investigators are going through cases and going, yeah, this is serious non-compliance with generally accepted auditing standards. These are serious deficiencies in audit performance and everything like that. But those are coming through complaints, financial scandals, other charming things. I've got a long memory of that stuff, and some of them are pretty interesting. But it's all other regulators' complaints coming to the Board of Accountancy, not through the peer review program.
Yeah. Madam Chair, if I could ask you a question just in terms of homing in on the issue of the authority and counsel advice, would you be open to either one or both of the next scenarios? One is I could ask counsel to write up a very brief written advice on this authority question. The other one is I could also invite counsel, if we kind of can structure the agenda in such a way that we could kind of do it early. I could also invite counsel to just come to the next PROC meeting for like the first portion and essentially have her give us advice. If so, it would require us doing a little bit of an executive session portion because we don't do legal advice in public session, and kind of have an opportunity for the board to also discuss that directly with counsel if you feel like that would be beneficial. And then we can do both.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if we could pose this question to legal counsel and have her, it's still her, right? I don't remember her name, but it was a woman.
Angie Hunt.
Yeah, Angie, yeah. Have her respond. And then I think that I don't know. I think that just a response of letting us know would be enough for me. I think what I really am interested in is, making sure that we're all very aware of what we do, what happens when we do it, what can we do, what should we do. And I don't have a lot of questions. I do have the same question that John has, though, if we run into something that really doesn't sit well with us, what would our next step be? Because this has never happened. And so, the question really is I am interested to know what the board might do with a referral from the AICPA. For example, if the AICPA refers this one we've just discussed, and they remove them from the peer review program, what happens next? And then also, if we have some concerns about something that's sort of outside and it is sort of siloed in a way, to me, the RAB reports to AICPA, not the board, but we're really looking at the oversight of the peer review committee. Do we have a responsibility or an obligation to report to the board if we see something that doesn't sit well with us that we think they may need to be aware of? Does that say it clearly enough? And did I encompass everything you talked about, John?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we probably talk about this further in one of the next sections of the agenda is where we talk about the Laws and Rules Committee coordinating request with the PROC, because they've also said that there are things that they want us to talk about. And based on our discussion today, I don't feel like we're ready to talk about some of those things. So I think we kind of do need to get that together sooner rather than later, because I would like to and we just wait till we get that to that section, but I would like to accommodate the LRC request as best we can.
So I think initially, Martin, to answer that question, it would be lovely if we could pose those questions and get some direction on that.
Yes.
As our first step.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe just have a little bit of, if you can recall that case study, Martin, that we could have maybe see what precedent has been established in terms
Yes.
of what.
Yeah. It all hangs together. Yeah.
Yeah. Because following precedent is always your best. In following the law, following precedent is always a good way to proceed.
Yeah. That's always a great, unless your precedent is not clear or screwed up, in which case you try to find a different way.
Well, if your precedent is Dred Scott, then you've got problems. But other than that, yeah, I think you're fine. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, if we're good, I'm going to move on to F. Martin, I'm going to rely on you for this because you had suggested as a topic on the agenda. I don't, so I kind of just fact finding, let us know what, on this private equity, the alternative practice structure,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well, I think we actually kind of already touched on it a little bit, but I actually want to first of all call out that, at least to the extent my memory serves correctly, I think it was actually John, not last meeting, but I think it was actually by now at least 2 or 3 meetings ago, is that I think John raised the question of, hey, with all this private equity stuff going on out there, when are we going to talk about the implications possibly for us on the peer review oversight committee side with respect to kind of that evolution of the profession in terms of its ownership structures and all of that. And I simply want to say that at that point, it was not yet, clear to me how some of this stuff hangs together. But I can say that since that time, I have picked up from different kind of indirect observations at AICPA, where they had, for example, a webinar not too long ago trying to educate both their membership, but also actually more rarely so actually with invitation to executive directors of the boards, kind of do a little bit their introduction to private equity ownership of CPA firms. And inside one of those webinars was simply a reference that came directly from Sue Coffey, who I forget her exact title, but she's pretty high up in the AICPA structure. And Sue Coffey actually specifically referred to the AICPA peer review board, in her words, having had some discussion around at that level around what the implication is of PE on peer review, or could be on peer review. So I wanted to at least, first of all, give you feedback that we are not alone in terms of John raising kind of that flag, and wait a minute, what is going on here? Shouldn't we be talking about this? The second piece is that, and this overlaps really with the following items on the Laws and Rules Committee, right? The Laws and Rules Committee, for reasons that are not really focused on the peer review piece, in all honesty, but for far broader reasons, the Laws and Rules Committee and the board have been talking about the implications of alternative practice structures in the context of, specifically in the context of private equity, right? And so there is lots of policy discussion there, but I think it would be beneficial, quite frankly, that when we get to the point that this committee wants to kind of discuss what is it that we really care as PROC with respect to peer review in the context of that evolution, right? I think it might be beneficial for the Laws and Rules Committee to kind of have a bit of an understanding of what the peer review specific kind of concerns and questions are that are coming up on the PROC side, because they're looking at the total, and then quite frankly, we're all struggling with trying to understand kind of the more global set of implications. In PROC's case, there's a very specific slice that's focused on the peer review specific implications. I do think that it makes some level of sense to at some point connect the strand of the Laws and Rules Committee discussions and the PROC discussion when you're ready to have it. So that's really all that I have to say underneath this piece. I am, as a non-CPA, not exactly the right person to kind of figure out what exactly all these things, these implications could or should be on peer review from the private equity side. I could give you some, educated guesses that may make some of you shudder, but I don't think I'm the right person for that.
Yeah. Well, just my curiosity about this, Martin, arose because private equity firms actually use APS, alternative practice structures, is really one of the fundamental designs underlying private equity acquisitions of local CPA firms. And the reason that I got interested in this is that my business partner and I were approached by one of the private equity firms that said, "Hey, we'd like to roll you guys up." And like, oh, well, how flattering. Why don't you tell us what that would look like? And of course, we had the usual discussions with them. And, the tax part of it all seemed fine and smelled okay. And then, we go, well, we've got this A&A practice, which is important to us, but it's not large part of our firm. So, what do we do about that? Why don't you send me your peer review report, right? Oh, well, we don't have one. And I go, oh, that's interesting. And then I go look at this alternative practice structure firm, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You're not registered with the Oregon Board of Accountancy. How is that? You have offices here, you're practicing here. How is it that you're not registered with the Oregon Board of Accountancy? And so I got referred to their alternative practice structure, and they're like, oh, well, the underlying constituent firms that we rolled up, they're registered with the Oregon Board of Accountancy. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so then I looked at them, and then firms that used to have, like a dozen CPAs registered, under their Board of Accountancy listing, have one now. They have one. And the people that used to be listed under that firm are now all working per the website of the private equity firm. They're all working for the private equity firm. So my thing is it's like, well, okay, what do you what's the state licensing, and then what's being peer reviewed, right? Because I mean ours is peer review oversight. So what's the state licensing and what's peer reviewing? And are we dealing with a form over substance thing where there's a placeholder historic firm that exists here on the Board of Accountancy records with one licensee in it, and everybody else has been moved over to, let's call it Weeby Taxes, the private equity firm. So it's interesting. There are two of them that are highly active in the Portland, Vancouver area. One of them has rolled up 4 or 5 small firms that have been around for as long as I have, which is a long time. And another one is rolled up a Vancouver firm and picked up some on the Oregon coast. And so it's interesting to kind of watch this development. But I think that in looking at it from the standpoint of the board, which is not my responsibility, but the Laws and Rules Committee, is how do you categorize these firms, right? Who is the firm that is subject to peer review? The one that has the state license with one licensee in it, or the firm where all the practitioners are? And so I'd been thinking about that,
Okay.
and that had been sort of my thought process in exploring it. The other thing that was interesting is in observing the RAB meetings, observing a RAB meeting, and there was a particularly interesting case I was listening to at the August 2023 or 2024 meeting. It was an August meeting. I remember it was really hot and I was outside listening on my phone. And in that one, they said, oh yeah, this firm has thousands and thousands of hours of audit stuff. So these people do a lot of auditing, right? And this was again one of those firms where you go in and here's the firm license, and there's one CPA listed as with the board as a licensee or as a licensee affiliated with that firm. It's like, wow, that person does a lot of work. They do thousands and thousands of hours of auditing, right? But they have obviously other people that work on it. So those were the things just the curiosity of what we observe happening in the marketplace without really having any sort of deep understanding of what's really going on, right? And that's really kind of where I came at it. So I think it's very good that the AICPA PRB is taking this up, because it is a question that I think that they should provide an answer to with some advice to state boards of accountancy is who is the firm for purposes of peer review when you have APS? Who is the firm?
Yeah, and I'm hoping, quite frankly, I mean, I don't have any insights yet on the agendas they have not yet been posted for either September 10 or November 13, right? But I'm hoping that what was reported out is accurate and will at some point show up on the agenda, including hopefully on the public portion of the agenda of those PRB meetings, and that we can learn a little bit from there, from whoever is going in September and November. That would certainly be super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've got the two that we're going to be looking at between now and the end of the year. So our ears open for that.
I have a comment. I think that it really is primarily a licensing issue, since the moment that a firm comes on our radar screen for peer review is when they check the box and say that they're doing a test functions and that they're subject to peer review. So that's like the starting point of the whole process. So I really think that we have to get that guidance from the licensing people, and then we can kind of, if we agree or disagree or whatever with their thing. But I think it has to start with them.
I've been following this issue for about a year now. And the question I have, it's my personal background, having been municipal audits for 10 years. And when you have your muni license and you're doing these yellow book audits, you have your licensure and your CPE requirements for your entire audit team. So if we break it down, not to go so much down a rabbit hole, but if you're looking at these yellow book audits and what's the requirements of the staff on that team, and then are you then, like John Hay says, it's substance over form. So now are we bifurcating it based on type of audit? And then is that a way to look at it from an overall perspective? I haven't really seen much literature or discussion on that type of engagement, but if that is especially where a lot of our firms in the state are under the jurisdiction of the OSCPA for peer review, what does it mean for them?
Any other comments or insights? Okay, our last agenda item for today is the Laws and Rules Committee request to coordinate with us. It looks like they're is mostly on the agenda. You can see it, but they are scheduled to finalize some major rule updates for consideration at the December 4th board meeting. And they were expressing interest to have a joint meeting with us to collaborate on any updates in Division 50 as part of those updates. And I think they had two specific areas they mentioned, and this would be disciplinary authority, option based on certain peer review outcomes, and also the impact of PEAPS on peer review on PROC and any implication for rules. Did I cover that enough there, Martin, for what you brought to my attention?
Yeah, and I think that, there's kind of different options here that we can consider and it sounds like you're, open to some level of coordination. It could either mean, logistically hard, but possible is that we could literally do like a joint committee where we try to get, essentially a quorum of both together. But we could also simply say, hey, can we, invite a laws and rules committee, like delegation, if you will, to the next PROC meeting, right? So that we don't have to set up a whole other PROC meeting, but we could, for example, say, hey, is the PROC willing to simply say, can we just invite as a specific agenda item, a laws and rules committee presence onto our next committee meeting to discuss some of these topics? That's another option. Another option that I can put on the table, but that one might be a little bit fast, is to kind of do the reverse or both, which is I now know as of yesterday that the Laws and Rules Committee meeting, the Laws and Rules Committee will be meeting on September 16th in the afternoon by Zoom. It'll be a pretty long meeting. They will have a very hefty agenda, but we could also have, for example, a member of this committee or you, Brenda, come to the Laws and Rules Committee to start off that discussion. We could do it that way as well, right? The good news here is we're not terribly constrained on the how. We have options and there is flexibility here, right? So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there because one involves a meeting that's just been set on the Laws and Rules Committee side for the afternoon of the 16th of September. Another one would be taking the existing meeting that we have in November. I don't have that in front of me right now, but I'm assuming it's probably in November 10-ish area, just based on traditional meeting times. And say, hey, should we, would this committee simply want to invite the Laws and Rules Committee into that meeting? And say, hey, we would make part of our agenda time, make that part of the discussion in November. So just trying to provide some options here.
Will a November meeting be timely given the December 4th consideration? I guess I'm trying to figure out the time constraints here of any that might be valuable to them.
November is a little bit late. September is a little bit soon. It's coming up pretty quick, right? Because we're talking basically a month from now, but that's certainly, getting it done sooner rather than later would be good.
And so I'm trying to think logistically, do they have questions that they would like us to respond to, or are they asking for recommendations and input of which we don't have since we're just introducing this topic right now?
I think it's really more about essentially what I've told the Laws and Rules Committees is that traditionally when PROC wants to update its rules, and while I don't recall the specific, there's been a little bit of this discussion in this committee already around, hey, we may need to update this, that, or the other thing in our rules at a certain point in our Division 50 proc rules, right? So it's, to me, the most helpful thing would be if the proc already has some level of idea of this is something we would like to actually see changed, right? And to kind of get that into the Laws and Rules Committee process, because that's usually the starting point, because you are effectively the subject matter expert on our Division 50 rules, right? So it's always the healthiest if essentially proc initiates, hey, we already have as a committee some ideas or some desires for this, that, or the other thing needs to be tweaked, right? So I think probably the most important thing would be for this committee to have a sense of, when do you think, from just this committee's perspective, do you feel like you have a substantive ask that you may want to make, right? That you want to put into the process. Now, I do want to say that while November is a little bit tight, it's not too late, right? Because we're still in the formative stage. And it just means that a product has to go before the board that is the ultimate decision maker of what ultimately gets exposed. And that decision needs to be made at the December 4 board meeting. So yes, November doesn't give us a lot of time, but it's not too late either.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is we have, just 25 minutes left of this meeting, I believe, unless we have a little longer. We haven't really substantively ever brought this topic up. I think I do recall there have been times where we've needed some clarification of Division 50. One of those being, we felt like the guidance surrounding whether a committee member needed to be a peer reviewer and what that meant. And we asked and received some guidance from the board. I think that the entire committee would appreciate if that was a little crisper. Is that the kinds of things you're talking about, Mark?
Yes,
Are they okay?
exactly.
Yeah. So, and so I guess what I'm grappling with now is timing of, we haven't really discussed have a consensus of, these are areas that, we're seeing in Division 50, like we would like some more, a little crispness. I mean, I can think of one off the top of that, the disciplinary authority is the question that we're putting to legal counsel. What, if anything, do we have an authority? Do we just simply report to the board? Do we wait for the AICPA peer review committee to report to the board? There might be something there, but I'm trying to think of a time that we would have to have that discussion in order to even come up with any kind of substantive ask.
Yeah, and we don't have to change anything for the sake of changing anything, but your observation on the timeline is very fair, right? Because there is a little bit of a clock ticking. I also want to say it's simply an opportunity. It doesn't mean that that's the only opportunity. It just means that's the next ship that's scheduled to leave the station. It happens to be a rather large ship. I like using simple terms and allegories. This is going to be a little bit of a kind of a Noah's Ark version of rulemaking, because we're going to have a lot of topics in that one, because most of it is going to be about Senate Bill 797 implementation, which is code for the new licensure pathways, and there's a lot of detail that's going to have to go into those rules just from that perspective. So there isn't a must item, but it's especially important if there is something on this committee's end that says, hey, it's just one thing, but it's really important to us, and could we fix this sooner rather than later, right? Then that would be good to know, because then we have a logical, essentially, place where we can hang it on to that, as opposed to going through a whole separate rulemaking just for the proc piece.
So and then this, I want to make sure I'm not suggesting violating any public meeting laws either, but would it be reasonable to suggest that the members review Division 50 and perhaps if there's anything that comes to their attention where, hey, this might be helpful with what I know so far about the proc, or help our jobs, or help clarify things that we might be able to tag into that process, and then perhaps share those with me or you, I don't know, just spitballing here. And then if there are some topics that we feel that, you know, members have brought to our attention that merit some discussion, that we just maybe have a different, an extra proc meeting. I don't know if any of that is okay or amenable to people, but I'm just throwing it out there because I don't see a possibility of a timeline
Yeah.
in any other way for us to get together as a group and discuss this.
So I think that what we can do in compliance with public meeting law is I can send out an email after this meeting to the full committee, simply asking for, do you have any thoughts or input around issues in the rules that you feel are either problematic, need to be clarified, substantive changes, right? And if so, respond, not by reply all, that's the key. No reply all. And just to me, it can't, I'm sorry, Brenda, but it actually, notwithstanding your chair role, it can't come to you because then it's a conversation between committee members, right, outside the public domain. So it has to come to me. I can compile the responses and then I can give you the list. And essentially, I can then just do a consultation with just you and me and saying, here's the list. What do you think, Brenda, rises to, you know, do you, you know, are you good with just handing on that list to the Laws and Rules Committee? Do you have any editorial remarks that you as the chair want to make? And I would like to actually get that done sooner rather than later. And I'll probably do it a little bit with either Andrew's or Shelley's help because I'm out relatively soon because I want to give this committee a little bit of time to think about it. But it will be really good if we get feedback from this committee basically by Labor Day, so that after Labor Day, we could roll it up with you, Brenda. I forget whether you're in or out that first week of September. Are you around the first? If you're in the first week of September, if we can roll up the feedback, the individual feedback of the committee members with you in that first week of September, right? So that we can then provide some kind of an input into the September 16 Laws and Rules Committee meeting, saying LRC has either nothing, or here's this issue that, you know, stood out, or, you know, whatever it ends up being, so we can get the ball rolling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I mean, I wouldn't mind one or more of us attending the September 16th meeting, but I do feel like we have to have some sort of consensus or plan. And so that was really my question, is how do we accomplish that? Does anybody on the committee have any feedback about taking that approach? And just to get the ball rolling, just given that I think November is going to be way too late to have the discussion.
This is Pamela Parks. I kind of feel like we haven't really talked about this before. And so I feel like we just need more time. I feel like December 4th is kind of rushing it. I don't have anything. I mean, we're trying to get some advice from council on the disciplinary action. So we're kind of waiting on a lot of things. I just feel like this whole thing is a little rushed for me.
Yeah, I agree with what Pamela said. I think that certainly there would be nothing wrong with you know, one or more of us attending that meeting as a member of the public and as an observer to gather information for the proc. But I don't know that I would want to go and be participatory at this point in time until we'd had time as a committee to review that information, decide what we wanted to do. And I don't feel like we're there today. So.
Oh yeah, well,
Okay.
definitely not there. So the question would be, does anybody feel like I mean, I just don't feel like any of us have a resolve that things need to be changed in the proc right now. Is that the consensus that I am getting from everybody? I know that the only thing that's ever come up to me that we've ever discussed was really that issue of what do they mean by this? You know, could we make this a better definition? What and then, you know, to a certain extent, you know, what should we do if we don't feel good about a RAB decision, or we're concerned about a firm that is we feel like is moving along that peer review chain of 9 to 10 years too short, right? Those are the only two things that I think we've ever come up with. And if it's true that that laws and rules can be changed anytime, I'm pretty much in agreement that maybe it becomes a topic for us for future discussions. But I can't even, I just think it would take a huge effort to have any kind of consensus by December 4th, and perhaps we could discuss it in November and come up with, you know, put that on the agenda in November, but I'm not sure we'd have anything of use for the Laws and Rules Committee.
Okay, no, that's fair.
And I think I agree. I mean, I don't see any problem with the statute or Division 50 right now. I mean, our role is oversight. And as Brenda has said, it's just understanding what it is that we need to do to accomplish that role. And then we've gone one step further at the meeting today and said, does the board want us? Do they want information from us about specific you know, firms, specific non-pass firms? Do they want any information from us, or do they just want to use the AICPA referral and have that be the initiator of further board action? So, you know, we don't have an enforcement role, and we have an oversight role. And I think that I like to think that we're doing that very well now compared to how it was being done in the past. I think we're covering the bases and doing what we're doing. We're issuing our annual report, and we're doing what the statute asks of us. And I don't see a need for a change in the statute more than just a clarification of if the board wants more information from us, really. I mean, that's really kind of what it comes down to. So, yeah, it's interesting, but
Yeah.
you always have to think
You
too.
said it very well. That's how I feel too. I'm a little, I'm not sure that I don't feel qualified to suggest a change at this point. We're still learning, we're still navigating, you know, how the commit, I think we're doing really good, you know, like John said, compared, but it's like starting a new job in 2 months, within 2 months saying, we're going to make some big changes here, right? Not there yet.
Absolutely. One more thing I was going to say, I was trying to remember what it was. I'm getting old, so I think it slipped away there. But you know, I think it is important to do. I think what we're doing. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I think that the legislature knew what they were talking about when they created the statute that created us. Because remember, we are the only committee of the Oregon Board of Accountancy that's created by statute. All the other ones are created by board regulation. And so the legislature had something specific that they wanted us to do. And other than, as Martin has mentioned, other than he and I, and you know, maybe a few others are old enough to remember this peer review thing was new. And they're kind of like, fine, we're going to have this peer review thing. It kind of sounds like the AICPA is going to run it, but we want to have oversight. And that was why we were created. It's like we were created to oversee the program and make sure that it didn't that peer review, I think, fundamentally didn't usurp the role of the Board of Accountancy with licensure and enforcement, that it would be subordinate to the laws of the state of Oregon. And that's why we're here. Make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, and also probably make sure that they don't overstep, which they don't. They don't do disciplinary, they do corrective action, but that isn't disciplinary. Never does the RAB say you can't practice. The RAB is just saying, well, we're going to have to refer you to the AICPA. Sure, sorry, guys, you know. But so I think that that's the thing I always consider is I think the legislature knew what they were doing when they created us. And I think that they got good advice to do it. And I think the concern was peer review needs to be subordinate to the law, subordinate to the Board of Accountancy.
Well, thanks, everybody, for that feedback. I appreciate it. That's it for our agenda. Does anybody have any other comments, concerns, or things that you would like me to add to the next agenda? All right. Oh, thank you, everybody. I will call the meeting ended at what? 2:48 p.m.
Okay, it's gonna take us a moment to stop the video because Erica just stepped out for a second. So she should be right back, but you're welcome to log off. We'll splice off the rest of this stuff, and bless you and thank you all.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good day, rest of your day.
Okay, we'll let Erica shut this down when she's out of the restaurant.
Were you behind the statute that created the peer review committee?
Sorry, what?
Were you the architect of the peer review committee
I
ccharge?
cannot take credit for that. I can take credit for many things, but I cannot take credit for that. So, yeah, that's really interesting here that they just did this. So let's you can actually go back, and if you want, do you want to, can we take like a 5 or 10 minute break?
Okay.
And then I can, if you still have time, I can do a little bit more with you, and then I will be done. I'm pretty wiped out.
Okay.
I will just need to make sure that Erica knows to stop recording.